Redditors who have a job where they go into other people's homes, plumbers, electricians, etc. What's the weirdest, most disturbing thing you've seen while working in a customer's house? Was a carrier for the post office. When you first start you only have one route one day a week. Every other day you cover for someone who calls in sick or is on vacation or something like that. So one day I covered for a different carrier who was sick. I get to one house and they have 4 packages. On the front door there was a sign that said, "Please don't knock or ring, just open door and leave the packages behind the door." So I'm like, okay, this is weird, but whatever, it must happen a lot because the sign was old and dusty. So I open the door, go in, the house is normal. I bend down to put the packages down neatly. As I rise back up, there is this old dude, had to be like 60 to 70, just standing there in tight ass jeans, tight ass tank top with a clearly dyed jet black mustache, drinking beer out of a can with a straw. I naturally got scared for a second, so I tell him, "Sorry, you scared me, I didn't see you there." And he just says, "That's cause I wasn't here." So I just say, "Well, I'm sorry," and start to leave, and he says, "Hold up, where is so and so?" I say, "Oh, she is sick, so I will be covering for her today and possibly tomorrow." And his words verbatim were, "Nice, maybe she should stay sick a while, I'll make sure to wear something cute tomorrow." I fake laugh and got the hell up out of there. Was a firefighter another time in my life. Had a middle of the night call to a mobile home for an elderly lady once. We walk in and it's dark, but as my eyes start to adjust I think, "Oh, that's weird wallpaper." I keep looking around. It's on the ceiling too. Weird inconsistent patterns and rectangle shapes. Eyes adjust some more while we are talking to her. WTF. Double quote. Are those puzzles? She had hundreds of puzzles that she had glued when completed and then glued them to every surface of her mobile home. Walls, ceiling, living room, bedroom, every square inch covered. Weird, but you do you. Especially in your own home. Certainly not as bad as most it. Disturbing? Not at all. Weird, a bit. I was a medical equipment delivery guy for a couple years. Went into a dementia patient's house and had to instruct his caretaker on how to set up a large tank of O2. As I was kneeling down, my phone went off with my really low, key notification tone, which was a singular beep. Well, the pet bird nearby seemed to have taken a shine to that noise and mimicked it perfectly in tone and volume. The caretaker and I looked at one another with her saying, "I've been here for 6 years and he's never done that before." From then on, every time I delivered and knelt down to educate the caretaker, SOP demands it, that bird would instinctively ping me until I let my phone notification sound go off. After which the bird would celebrate by bobbing his head up and down and turning in a circle. Edit. This blew up. The patience is staying. Something tells me a caretaker for a dementia patient would need quite a bit of it. Friendly reminder to check in on your older friends and family who choose to live alone or with very little supervision with home care. They miss you a lot. A few years back I worked as an electrician. I found a guy with a rifle laying next to him where he had tried to blow his head off through his mouth. But he had missed the vital parts. Brain and blood was all over the bed, but he was still breathing. He was in coma state of mind. Heard later that he died that day. Edit. More info in the gilded comment below. I'm an electrician and I was troubleshooting a bad outlet in the bathroom of a former NFL player. I was taking all the outlets apart, following them to see if I could trace out the homerons when he comes in and starts talking football. We are in the middle of talking when he just walks over to the toilet and starts taking a shit. I couldn't see him, but there was just a little pony wall between us. He didn't even stop telling his story. It was crazy. I walked out because of the smell. He came out a little later and it was like nothing ever happened. Used to deliver oxygen to people's homes. Saw plenty of weird things. Lots of hoarders. But this one took the cake. He didn't want to let us into his house. But I had to do a home safety assessment before I could set up the equipment. He was anxious about letting me in because his house was mess. He kept telling me about his messy house. Come to find out, it wasn't just messy. It was filled with 200 chickens. He was proud of his show chickens and wouldn't let them live in a barn or cooperative. The smell was unbearable. Other than that, he was a super nice guy. Long ago I did estimates for fire and water damage repairs for a restoration company. This couple had a smallish fire in their bedroom. When I enter the home it's seemingly normal. Smells like smoke. There was a fire. Makes sense. They take me to the bedroom and it was the mattress that had endured the majority of the fire, along with some of the wall above the head of the bed and smoke damage to the ceiling. Next to each side of the bed are 10-gallon buckets filled to the brim with cigarette butts. and hundreds of spilled over butts all over the floor. I was just in awe how they could live like this in their bedroom, especially since the rest of their home seemed tidy and normal. Also completely beyond me why they wouldn't clean that shit up after the fire if for no other reason than insurance adjusters being able to blame them rightly, and possibly not pay out. Double quote. How did the fire start? I asked, required to ask. Double quote. No idea. The husband replied. Fire alarm inspector, working in a cheap long-term hotel and knocked on a door where a larger man dressed in essentially a purple bikini opens the door half asleep. Enter to test the smoke detector and tried to keep my eyes off the bed but I knew I had seen something. Tried not to look but I did and there's a big old purple dildo next to the TV remote. The detector then decides to not alarm in a timely fashion so I'm just staring at the wall hoping it will alarm so I get out of the room. My boyfriend is a locksmith. During the 2008 recession Las Vegas had hundreds, thousands of homes that were getting repoed or abandoned. The company he worked for would have him go and change the locks to keep people out, and usually this happened in the middle of the night to limit the possibilities of running into owners of the properties. I sometimes tagged along, mostly to explore some of the ridiculously big houses that people had just left, but helped some of the time. This one house looked totally normal from the outside. You couldn't tell any difference from any of the other cookie cutter, planned development homes, but inside, in every room, there were those timeout dolls. If you have never seen them, they are a doll that stands against the wall with its hands up to its face, and even more creepy usually they have no face, but they look like a kid hiding their face or pouting after being put in a timeout. When I say they were in every room, I mean every single room, and not just one, but dozens, lining the walls, not laying down, but standing up against every wall of the house. The house's electricity had been shut off so all we had was flashlights. Walking into each room it did not get less creepy seeing doll after doll. He is already afraid of dolls and this made it so much worse. Altogether we counted 63, but there might have been more. Food bank delivery to homebound elders. I always fill 2 banana boxes, around 1.5 feet by 3 feet deep of all types of food and deliver to his house. One time after delivering to him for 3 years I have to come inside because he hurt his foot. He had never thrown out a single box. They lined every wall and entrance. He built a castle around his bed, and a series of paths through his house. It was like thighs pillow forts you would make as a kid but with boxes. I asked him if he wanted help getting rid of them and he said number. That it was fun and helped with his dimension. He's super fun. Left square bracket. Edit. I'm letting it stay. I was installing alarm systems, and one day I went out on a service call, stepped into a literal cesspool, and thanked God for my plastic booties to protect my shoes from walking on their disgusting carpet. Was shown to the alarm panel, and when I pulled the panel off the wall to see why it was not powering on, an army of roaches started scurrying out of the wall. Turns out the panel died because several roaches had electrocuted themselves on the circuit board. I did apartment maintenance for a while. We started quarterly inspections and the first day we opened a door and the smell that came out was indescribable. The guy who was with me was ex-military and he said that we were about to find a body. In the maintenance community this tends not to be a matter of if you ever find a body but when. He told me that he would go in alone if I was uncomfortable with it but I went in too. We didn't find a body, but we found a mountain of trash that took up the entire dining area. And honestly just trash, mostly food packaging, everywhere, and that accounted for a lot of the smell. We also found a dog, a very sweet golden retriever that was starved for attention. It was obviously being left to just piss and poop all through the unit. It probably hadn't been outside in weeks based off of the smell and general condition of the unit. We went outside, locked up, and called the property manager for her to come by. While we were waiting he came home. The look on his face when he saw us was terrifying. The manager talked to him and they set a plan about cleanup and gave a time frame for him to get the unit back to regular. The other maintenance guy stayed with him for a while that evening. When we left the unit he was sure that the guy would kill himself that night. Turns out the renter had recently went through a very rough divorce where his children had been removed from him with very little warning and he was spiraling. I left the company before I learned how it all ended. I hope he is doing better. I delivered pizza for about 2 years. I had to deliver to a local motel pretty frequently. One day I go to deliver and a large lady, I'm talking 6 feet 0 inches, 220, was decked out in dominatrix attire. She answered the door ready to get down to business, then immediately closed the door and threw a robe on. She apologized profusely and then tipped me $10 for the situation. Edit. To answer some questions. Sure, I could have gone in, but when these situations come up at 16 you never play them like you think you would. Also, she took one look at me and probably thought I was way too young to be her client. Damn baby face, I look like I'm 20, I'll be 30 soon. I'm a face painter who does children's birthday parties. I've never had any super sketchy experiences. Just a few run down homes, but the kids always have fun. I went to one house. Kinda messy and smelly, but no big deal. I started setting up my supplies and I heard a weird peep sound above me. I look up to see a guinea pig running through a clear plastic tube attached to the ceiling. Then I take a good look around the house and notice the whole place is covered with a network of guinea pig tubes. The mom noticed me looking around and nonchalantly told me they have like 10 guinea pigs.